If you're seeing a bunch of clouds and hearing an angelic choir in the background, don't worry. You're probably not dying, you're just getting ready to watch us rank every major character in The Simpsons from worst to best. This is the Simpsons Character Tier List.
I just wanted a place to sit down.
Like usual, we'll be starting with the least likable characters in Springfield. These characters will make us say boo earns more than any other. This is the F tier.
Who the hell are these people?
Our pick for the very bottom of the list has to be Helen Lovejoy. The mean-spirited characters in adult cartoons are in no short supply, and The Simpsons is no exception. However, most of them have one very crucial attribute. They're funny. That, my friends, is why Helen Lovejoy is easily the weakest character of the ensemble cast. Despite being the wife of local minister Reverend Lovejoy, she's not exactly Christ-like, being more of a snooty busybody than anything else. We can even give the Reverend some points due to him being somewhat funny at times, but Helen is both rude and boring, which is a dangerous combo worthy of our bottom spot.
Okay, mood's gone.
I don't know if this is going to be a hot take, but next is Sideshow Mel. Look, nobody expected Sideshow Mel to be a worthy replacement for the old rake stepper himself. I get that. But it's only reasonable to expect something, right? Sideshow Mel isn't in F tier because he's a bad character. No, he's here because, I mean, the guy's just there.
They say any publicity is good publicity.
He doesn't really add all that much to any particular episode, and when he does play a role, he's always overshadowed by the other characters. Frankly, an outright irritating character is often better than a boring one like this.
Yes.
Which brings me to a character I place in F tier only by sheer obligation, Agnes Skinner. Agnes is Principal Skinner's overly controlling mother. She's incredibly demeaning and insulting towards her son, never really coming around on him one way or another.
Lost your spine, huh? You just keep finding new ways to disappoint me.
That said, for as unpleasant as she is, she's pretty darn funny, and seeing Skinner slowly lose his temper around her is pretty entertaining. I still hate her, but since that's pretty much the whole purpose of her character, I guess I can't place her any lower for it. And closing out the bottom tier, we have a dual entry for Milhouse's parents, Kirk and Luann Van Houten. Really, these two's utter lack of parenting skills would have already earned them a low spot. They have their moments, sure, but they're not nearly funny enough to even out how unpleasant and pathetic they are, often either neglecting their son or using him to get back at the other. But if that weren't enough, in season 26, Milhouse casually dropped the reveal,
"Marrying a cousin worked out great for my parents."
Like, dude, we have a whole character for that joke already, man, come on! Now, let's move on to the D tier, for the characters who suck a little bit less. Kicking this category off is Reverend Lovejoy. Now, Lovejoy is far from a likable character, but he has two things above his wife. One, he's at least kind of funny. By no means is he anywhere near one of the funniest characters in the show, but he's at least not boring. And as for number two, he's a pretty decent satire for religious hypocrisy. Sadly, there are all too many Christian leaders who take advantage of their congregation and their wallets without any real concern for them, so it's nice to have a character who exists to call out that issue. On a similar note, up next is Kent Brockman, Springfield's own news anchor. Like all too many journalists out there, Kent here doesn't really care about most of the issues he reports on. He's just there to do his job, get paid, and move on. I guess there's nothing too terribly wrong with that though, and he's really not as exploitative as Lovejoy, so we're gonna give him a slightly higher position. Still, we don't particularly have much positive to say about him either, save for the occasional funny one-liner.
Tragic news tonight, 120 dead in a tidal wave in Kuala... France.
Now we have two characters we couldn't dream of placing separately, Patty and Selma. Because I can't tell them apart, and while I'm sure there are exceptions, you probably can't either, right?
Hello, Marge. Hello, Marge.
Either way, I'm not even extending them that courtesy of bothering. These two are the worst, man. Like Agnes, we'll give them some credit for the fact that they're at least meant to be hated. They're abrasive, constantly berating and abusing Homer, and
when you come out of there, the first thing you're gonna see is a man with a good job.
Yeah, the doctor.
Doing pretty much everything short of killing the guy. But if nothing else, they aren't entirely one note. There was that one episode where Selma briefly married Troy McClure only to leave him when he planned to have a child for the sole sake of publicity. This shows that deep down, Selma at least has some semblance of a heart, and the twins do seem to care about each other, even if they're pretty much the only ones who do. Oh, Superintendent Chalmers, welcome. I hope you're ready for the next spot. Really, there isn't too much to say about Chalmers. Like Agnes, he tends to berate Skinner and antagonize him whenever he shows up. Unlike dear old mother, though, it's kind of Chalmers' job to berate Skinner, and he usually has much more valid reasons when he does, to be fair. The dearly departed Maude Flanders takes our next spot. She's a pretty divisive one, to be frank. On one hand, she's a very pleasant woman. Unlike Helen, Maude was a sincerely loving Christian woman and a devoted mother and wife to her family. On the other hand, well, come on. How much can I really say about a character whose most memorable moment in the series was literally dying? I guess it's kind of funny that she came back as a ghost wanting revenge on Homer, who didn't even mean to do her any harm, but that's about as much as I can say for her in terms of comedy. Rounding out the D tier, we have Springfield's own local redneck, Cletus. He's one of the many recurring gag characters in the show, but honestly, he's one of the weakest. It can be funny to see just how absurdly trailer trash this dude gets whenever he's on screen, and he has some pretty funny moments.
Hey, what's going on this side?
But he just doesn't make us laugh nearly enough for us to place him any higher. But at least the incest jokes are a little less shocking coming from him.
Wait a minute. Are you two brother and sister?
We's all kind of things.
Now let's move on to the next category, for the more middle-of-the-road characters. These are the C-tier characters. Kicking off this category is local Godfather knockoff Fat Tony.
You know, the movie, The Godfather.
Never heard of it.
A very what you see is what you get character. Fat Tony is, well, seriously, just look at him.
Fat Tony.
What? What did I do?
He's a sketchy mafia boss who shows up as a gag character and occasionally a full-blown antagonist. One of those characters you can take one glance at and know exactly what he's all about. He has his interesting episodes and moments, but they aren't enough to place him any higher. In basically the exact same vein, next is Snake Jailbird. In a town with a police force as special as Springfield's, it wouldn't be hard to have a thriving career as a violent criminal, so it's no wonder Snake is always making a scene whenever he shows up. But hey, at least he's an animal lover.
Hey, mister, would you like a puppy?
No, but I'll take one.
It's not a heart of gold, but he does have a heart at all, somewhere in there. Speaking of characters who probably should be in jail, next is Otto. Man, look, I have nothing against enjoying a little of that reeferino, but maybe don't do it while driving a bus full of children? Just a thought. Still, aside from his likely high DUI count, Otto seems like a chill guy. He's content to just vibe and imbibe wherever he goes. Just do not let him drive, even though that's his job. But if you do, you'd better call Lionel Hutz. One of the departed Phil Hartman's dearly missed classic characters, Lionel Hutz was a sleazy lawyer who'd help his clients out with any case they needed. That is, assuming it's profitable, of course, and not particularly dangerous to himself. He's a sketchy guy, sure, but he's a fairly smart businessman and pretty darn funny on top of that.
Do I still get paid?
Hey you, are you struggling with various internal organ problems that may or may not require surgery? Then you're in luck. This video is sponsored by Dr. Nick Riviera. If you need open heart surgery at a reasonable price and a skill level that reflects said reasonable price, Nick is your man. If you aren't satisfied, just let him know. He won't do anything about it, but he seems like a good listener. And make sure to use our special link in the description for 25% off your order of 10 surgeries or more. It's not really there, don't look for it. Woo! Let's give it up for Richard Tixon in our next spot. Rich here is a simple man. He's got a fancy suit, a fancier gun, and, dare I say it, an even fancier outlook on life. No celebration is too small to waste a bullet or two on. Oh, wait, no, not on people. No, he just shoots them in the air. Jeez, man, he's not that crazy. Actually, no, he totally would do that. Well, crazy or not, I feel like he'd get along well with Horatio McAllister. I have a soft spot for these goofy, specifically themed side characters. Like, the whole joke with McAllister is that he's a pirate who doesn't know how to sail. He does know how to fry, though, which helps him run the Frying Dutchman, and I'll stand by the fact that I really want to try that place one day. Aside from his incompetence regarding sailing, he seems like a pretty cool guy, and I can't help but find him weirdly endearing. Closing out the C tier are Ned's creepy little offspring, Rod and Todd. Weirdly, the hostile roasts aside, Rod and Todd are sweet kids. They're obedient to their parents, nice to their fellow kids, and seem to take on any situation with an optimistic mindset. Compared to the troublemaking Bart and often hypocritical Lisa, it's funny to see just how well-behaved the neighbors right next to them are. Despite their optimism, though, it's clear to see that they're always ready for trouble. Let's not forget that when Ned asked Todd to shoot him if he tried to come back into his own bomb shelter, Todd had a shotgun pulled out in seconds. But sadly, it didn't give him a shot at our next section.
That's it, young man. No Bible stories for you tonight.
This is the B tier, and we're starting to get to the more iconic Springfieldians now. Kicking off this category, we have Troy McClure. You may remember him from any number of weirdly titled documentaries and other genre of film masterpieces he's starred in, but we remember him for being, like Lionel Hutz, another dearly missed character from the classic era. Rest in peace, Phil Hartman. Here's hoping you're teaching kids about the horrors of the meat industry in heaven. Resident genius and possibly undercover narc, Martin is up next. Admittedly, he's not Springfield Elementary's most iconic nerdy character, but he's still a pretty good one. Despite being constantly bullied, Martin remains one of the nicest characters in the series, making for a decent friend whenever he's needed. Whether it's hyping up Nelson after he saves him from a bully, or helping Bart study for a test, it's one thing to be kind, but to be kind to people who treat you like trash takes another level of humility, so we're going to give him some bonus points for that. Next up is one of the most heroic characters, Snowball II. Sure, she's not nearly as iconic as the other Simpson family pet, but let's not forget that she was the one who saved Homer from a fire he was otherwise stuck in.
I always thought cats were just for losers who live in apartments.
That's a feat that only she and Ned Flanders have under their belts, or a collar in this case. But we're still going to bring Santa's little helper to a slightly higher spot. Debuting in the first official episode of the series, he's a dog who was rejected by his sleazy owner for losing a race. Bart and the rest of the family took a liking to him instantly, so this little guy became a permanent member of the Simpson family. While he's far from the most iconic character overall, it's nice to see that he's still around after all these years. Some things never change, and maybe they shouldn't. Now let's move from a best friend to a worst enemy, that enemy being Russ Cargill from the Simpsons movie. Honestly, we just want to shout this guy out for being a great cinematic villain for the movie. Mr. Burns could have easily filled this corrupt businessman role on the big screen, so making a new character to spice things up was definitely a neat choice. He also has one of the funniest villain deaths in animation history. Seriously, imagine coming so close to nuking an entire city and getting killed by a baby. Even Burns survived that. Hey, kids, and probably some adults too, it's Krusty the Clown! How could we forget about Springfield's favorite children's entertainer? Some would argue that Krusty gets overused in the series, and that's fair to an extent. But if you ask me, he's more than made up for with his usual sense of humor.
Krusty here to cheer you up as part of the hospital's Last Laugh program.
Even if the joke is usually on him, Krusty is a character who rarely has a dull moment on screen, not to mention some pretty good commentary about kids' media in general. Like, seriously, the Krusty home pregnancy test? Talk about a sellout, man. On the topic of relatively one-note characters, next we have Barney Gumble. He's a weird character in that he feels like one of the most crucial and most inconsequential characters in the show. While he's been called Homer's best friend, Barney doesn't really get as much focus as characters like Ned or Moe, for instance. He's usually just there to make jokes about his alcoholism most of the time.
You'd never get me into a ring. Boxing causes brain damage.
And those can admittedly be pretty darn funny, like his short film Pocahontas, but don't cry for him because, well, we're not placing him any higher for it. He's a good friend though, which earns him a higher spot than we'd otherwise have given him. While they're even less prominent, Kang and Kodos totally deserve a mention on our list. These two aliens appear often in the Treehouse of Horror specials, which, I'll be real, is basically the whole reason they're here in the first place. I just love the idea of these aliens not actively being evil, but rather just pissed off over Lisa accusing them of eating people. Honestly, I'd be kind of peeved too. Way to go, Lisa. We had a chance to befriend aliens and you just had to point out that they might be cannibals? Coming up next, we have one of the most memorable voice performances in the series, Professor Frink. No, really, I don't have any other reason for putting him here. Frink doesn't really do all that much, despite being the resident mad scientist character. He's just a funny-looking dude with a funny-sounding voice. And you know what? Sometimes that's all you need. But I guess sometimes it takes a fairly high IQ to understand comedy, you know? And I can think of no character to demonstrate that better than Bumblebee Man.
Buenas noches, señoritas.
This guy is just, he's a gem. He literally just shows up for some inexplicable TV gags here and there, and that's all well and good already. It's nice to see some good old-fashioned slapstick sometimes. But then there's the episode 22 Short Films in Springfield, where it's revealed that he's actually working his butt off to support his wife and his pet chihuahua, only for her to leave him over the very clumsiness that earned him his job. She doesn't deserve you, Bumblebee Man. None of us do. Welcome to the end of the B tier, and come again, just like we wish Apu Nahasapina Petalum would. Man, I don't know about you guys, but I have literally never heard someone say that Apu is an offensive character.
Ooh, they used nylon rope this time.
Is it because he's voiced by a white guy? If that's all, you guys would not like my main man Khan. It's really a shame that he's been gone for so long, because Apu was a pretty chill guy. I mean, yeah, he'd serve knowingly tainted food to his customers, and he also cheated on his wife that one time, and actually Apu was a pretty sketchy guy, but hey, at least he was pretty dang funny, right? Without further ado, let's move into some of Springfield's most iconic characters. This is the A tier. Like his former boss, many agree that Sideshow Bob gets overused pretty often, but we don't really mind.
By the way, I'm aware of the irony of appearing on TV in order to decry it, so don't bother pointing that out.
This guy's pretentious, arrogant attitude mixed with his extreme clumsiness makes him one of the funniest antagonists of the series, as does the fact that this is a grown man who has literally devoted his whole life to killing a 10-year-old boy.
Very well, Bart. I shall send you to heaven before I send you to hell.
He leads in some of the most memorable episodes of the series, which we've got to give him some points for. Breaking news, old man yells at cloud, and Abe Simpson is next on our list. Abe is nowhere near a model parent, nor even citizen, but he more than makes up for his shortcomings by being both funny.
Everybody wants something for nothing. I'm old! Gimme!
And having a surprisingly big heart. Abe's vulnerability often brings out the best and worst in the people around him, whether it's Homer nearly leaving him on the side of the road after an argument, or him and Bart teaming up to take down a local school bully. It's nice to see the main character's parent portrayed as a genuine person, rather than either a full-blown villain or just an explanation of why the main character is the way they are. Abe really does feel more like his own character, while still adding to the other Simpson family members. If you feel bad about your current life stage, just know that you're probably not doing as badly as Comic Book Guy.
Oh, loneliness and cheeseburgers are a dangerous mix.
Good old CBG was a warning to the world that not every adult who likes the same stuff kids do is a nice guy. I mean, well, okay, wording it like that, he could be way worse, but Comic Book Guy is still a hilariously mean character who scams children and seems to hate everyone and everything that won't contribute to his collection of comic books and Funko Pops. He gives a bad name to nerd culture enthusiasts everywhere, but since it leads to so many good jokes and gags,
don't try to change me, baby.
We'll let him off easy. But when it comes to Springfieldian nerds, we can't forget about Milhouse. Every kid who struggled with social skills can sympathize with Milhouse. He's such a brutally honest depiction of the struggles that wimpy kids go through. He's got a tumultuous home life, struggles to make friends, and clings to anyone and anything he gets a hold of.
Why didn't you come to visit me, Bart?
It makes him equal parts funny and sympathetic, and really makes you admire how good of a friend he is to Bart, even if that isn't always consistent. These next characters are quite complex. Itchy and Scratchy do many things. They fight, sometimes they fight, but most importantly, they offer kids valuable lessons on conflict resolution, the horrors of war, and terror. Wait, no, they just fight. But to be fair, they're really good at it, and they really raise the question of how Tom and Jerry were allowed to go as far as they did mutilating each other. Like a random tangent, but you guys remember that one episode where they both literally killed themselves after a breakup?
Oh my god! Who made this monstrosity?
Itchy and Scratchy were kind of tame compared to that. Next is one of, if not the most divisive character in the series, Lisa Simpson. Lisa is very much a love or hate character, as some fans love her for her genuine conviction on various social causes, while others hate her for being whiny and often hypocritical. Personally though, I'm in the love category, or at least like. I mean, don't hear what I'm not saying. Lisa can definitely be pretty annoying, but she's genuinely well-meaning and is a kid who just wants to be accepted by her peers. Anyone who grew up as a gifted child knows that the struggles Lisa goes through to find herself are actually more relatable than they're given credit for. So even if she's sometimes definitely a bit grating, we're gonna give this gold-hearted horse lover a pretty honorable spot on our list. It might surprise you guys to see Lenny and Carl so high up on our list. Sure, such a heartfelt, enduring friendship is really sweet, but these guys don't really do all that much. But, well, I'll be honest, it's mainly because of Lenny that they're up so high. Lenny is everyone's favorite Simpsons character after all.
Did you hear something?
No.
Did I?
I don't know.
Carl is cool too, but he'd be at best B tier on his own. Thankfully, Lenny is modest enough to stick back with his old friend. I think I speak for everyone when I say that when I grow up, I want to be just like Lenny.
Work harder. Bye.
Speaking of growing up, next we've got little Maggie Simpson. I don't even think we needed to explain why she's up so high. Like, she's a cute little baby with a gun. I mean, yeah, there's always that sweet moment where it's revealed that her baby pictures give Homer the motivation he needs to keep working, but what is that next to the fact that Maggie nearly murdered the two most evil people in the series and succeeded in one of them? She's a true hero, even if she doesn't know it yet, and she just manages to be that little ray of sunshine in basically every scene she's in. Oh, that's why she's shaped like that. Up next is Mr. Burns, his right-hand man, Waylon Smithers.
Smithers is on the town.
An absolute gay icon, whether you're just happy to see some positive representation or you're busy laughing at the fact that this dude literally wants Mr. Burns to fly into his room and make love to him. Smithers is one of the most uncomfortably hilarious characters in the series.
I love boobies.
Seriously, his little screensaver is one of the most disturbing yet hilarious things in the whole show.
Turning me on.
You probably should ignore that.
Still, we have to take off some points for him inexplicably using blackface in the first few episodes he appeared in. Like, seriously, what was that about, Smithers? It might surprise you to see her so high up, but we're giving Edna Krabappel a very respectable spot on our list. Against all odds, she's actually one of the more fleshed out supporting characters in the series. She could easily be written off at face value as grumpy teacher who hates Bart, but at the end of the day, despite all of her nihilism, she does genuinely care about her students.
Okay, Edna, remember, if you can teach one kid one thing, then today will be a success.
The episode Bart Gets an F is the best example of this. Despite being unfazed by Bart failing his history test, when he breaks down crying and reveals that he was actually trying for once, Krabappel takes pity on him, giving him extra credit for showing some good knowledge of history. That scene alone made my respect for both her and Bart go way up, honestly. It's one of those scenes that reminds you that as exaggerated as they are, these guys are still people. Ha ha! I bet you didn't expect to see Nelson so high up on the list. But like Bart's teacher, Nelson is a shockingly deep and multifaceted character. Despite being a bully, he's shown sympathy to people around him quite often, like helping Martin out with bullies or even befriending Bart. What's more, his bullying tendencies stem from an absolutely horrendous home life with parents so awful, I don't even think they're worth giving a spot on this tier list. Nelson isn't one of the most brilliant characters in fiction or anything, but he's funny and surprisingly sympathetic, which earns him a lot of points on our list. Next up, we have Principal Skinner. Really getting a lot of characters from Springfield Elementary out of the way, huh? Despite usually being antagonistic, Skinner is genuinely a good man.
Skinner?
You called?
Made reference.
My mistake.
I mean, sure, he's a doormat for his awful mother, but he's also trying his best to run his school well and make his boss proud. That said, he can also be quite petty at times, which at least leads to most of his more unlucky moments being pretty dang funny. If you're ever sick of him targeting Bart, you just have to wait until Superintendent Chalmers shows up. That's when you know stuff's about to get good. Pull up a bar stool for our next entry, Mo Sislak. The local bartender and owner of Mo's Tavern, Mo is initially portrayed as little more than just that, a sketchy bartender. When he's not on the receiving end of Bart's prank phone calls, he's getting called out for some type of crime. Which one will it be this time? That's a surprise, silly! But all else aside, Mo actually does have a heart. He's a decent friend to Homer, and he's been shown to just want someone to connect with over the years. Even when Mo is a complete insensitive jackass, he's still pretty hilarious. Like when he told Ned that his wife was hot at her funeral.
Hey, I'm paying for a silk-lined coffin, and damn it, I'm gonna feel it.
Landing just below the top 10 is the legendary groundskeeper Willie. The Scot with a red beard, the buff bald, and a temper shorter than a garden gnome. Willie's one of those characters who doesn't need any fancy character arcs to show his stuff. The joke is that he's Scottish and angry. That could easily be the punchline for a sarcastic remark about him, but no, it just works. Willie's a fun character, and while you pretty much know what you're getting whenever he's on screen, it's somehow almost never tiresome. But in his own words, those damn Scots ruined Scotland, so we can't exactly place him any higher.
Just made an enemy for life!
He can enjoy a spot just barely outside of the S tier, though, which I'd say is pretty generous, right? At number 10, we have a one-time character, Frank Grimes, or Grimy for short. I know he hated that nickname, but he's dead, so like, what's he gonna do? Really though, being a major player in Homer's enemy is enough to give old Grimy a pretty high spot on our list. He acts as a perfect foil to Homer. On one hand, he's both more hardworking and less successful than Homer on all accounts. On the other hand, however, he's nowhere near as kind nor sincere. In contrast to his friendly, albeit lazy colleague, Grimy is condescending and rude to anyone he considers beneath him, which naturally includes our dear homie. He's one of those characters who really makes you think. Okay, yes, I just watched that Amp Lemon video about him. Sue me. Next, we just have to mention Dr. Hibbert. Placing this guy in our top tier is probably controversial. He's far from the funniest character in the show, after all. But Hibbert more than makes up for that by being one of the most genuinely wholesome characters in the show. On top of that infectious laugh he's got, he's never short on lollipops to offer his loyal patients. Truly, the sign of a legendary physician. In a show that can be as cynical as The Simpsons, it's important to have moments that let you relax and breathe, which Dr. Hibbert always works to provide. Our next character's brain may be small, but his heart is big, and Ralph Wiggum has earned a big spot on our list to reflect that. I will admit he was at his best back when he had a few brain cells rather than straight up none. Plenty of jokes were made at his expense, but he at least had some semblance of cognitive competence. But Ralph is still an endearing and fun character. It takes a special kind of stupidity to outshine even Homer in terms of low intellect, but Ralph makes it look downright effortless, and no matter what level of stupidity he's reached,
I'm a unitard!
You can bet he'll have a smile on that face. It's hard to not love such a sweet, endearing kid, even if he's hogging all the pace for himself. Still, as much as we like Ralph, we have to admit that the one who made him is gonna get a bit more credit.
This kid's finally paying off.
Enter one of the funniest side characters in the show, Chief Clancy Wiggum. Take Ralph's complete lack of cognitive capabilities and throw it onto a character who is the literal chief of police, and you have Chief Wiggum. Whether he's actively making every situation around him worse, or just straight up being a criminal himself, Wiggum is always a sight to behold.
No, you got the wrong number. This is 912.
Whether he'll make you laugh or shout in frustration may vary from episode to episode, but you can bet that he'll never be boring.
If anything goes wrong, just dial 911. Unless it's an emergency.
On top of all that though, Wiggum is actually a loving family man and has a pretty sweet relationship with his son Ralph. It doesn't erase all the more horrific qualities, no, but it does add an extra layer of nuance. Landing just outside of the top 5 is the Simpson family's mother and wife, Marge Simpson. That iconic blue hair, that loving, nurturing personality, and that ever-present, raspy voice of reason have been iconic since the 90s. Marge, like Dr. Hibbert, stands out not due to being particularly funny compared to other characters, even though she has her moments.
At times like this, I guess all you can do is laugh.
Rather, Marge sticks out by means of being wholesome and sweet. As much as she messes up, there's never any doubt that she loves her family just the way they are. That's something relatively rare to see in adult cartoons, especially quite so consistently, so we've got to give some due credit here. That said, you guys should really consider letting your voice actress rest. But first, this video is brought to you by Wicked Binge channel memberships. You can gain access to our videos early before anyone else, plus gain access to members-only emojis and loyalty badges by supporting the channel through a membership. The mischievous meme icon himself, Bart Simpson, has cracked our top 5. I know Bart's a little troublemaker, a schemer even, but we just can't help but love the guy.
Well, I'm my own toughest critic, but I think it's genius.
Like Nelson and Milhouse before him, Bart is a realistic, albeit exaggerated, portrayal of troubled kids.
Have you ever been in a police car?
not in the front.
His best episodes come around whenever he's given a chance to show off his more good-natured, sympathetic side. One of our favorite examples of this is the Christmas episode Marge Be Not Proud, where Bart disappoints Marge by bailing on a Christmas card photo and stealing a new video game. Later, he makes up for it by surprising her with a new portrait from the mall. Bart's mischievous nature combined with his ultimately good heart makes him one of the best characters from a storytelling standpoint, rightfully placing him in our top 5. The last and greatest of the show's gag characters we're bringing into the fray today is none other than Hans Moleman.
This isn't my army reunion.
I swear, every joke involving this guy is an absolute comedy goldmine. Whether it's the reveal that he's actually just 38 years old, the time he got unknowingly seduced by a gay guy, or the deleted scene where he literally robs God at gunpoint.
Now hand over the rest of it. Nice and easy.
Moleman is one of the most hilarious characters in the series' history, and for that, we honor him with the highest spot we could give him.
I just wanted a place to sit down.
Sadly though, as gay as we are for Moleman, there are 3 characters who make us even gayer. Yeah, that sounds right. The bronze medal of greatness goes to Mr. Burns. Mr. Burns is one of the most iconic cartoon villains out there. Often, villains have to choose between being cartoonishly evil or realistically evil. Monty Burns stands out by managing to do both. He's the kind of guy who does realistic stuff like frivolous lawsuits, underpaying employees, and even harassing one of said employees' wives, but he'll also do such radically screwed up things as trying to block out the sun itself.
I call this enemy the sun.
Burns is the perfect example of a character who can be both a genuine threat and one of the funniest characters in the series, often at the same time.
Smithers, wink my eye.
Sometimes you'll laugh because he said something funny, and other times it'll be out of sheer discomfort from how anyone could even come close to being as diabolical as this guy is. From one end of the morality spectrum to the other, the silver medal of greatness goes to Ned Flanders. This good Samaritan of a neighbor needs no introduction. Ned Flanders is practically everything Homer Simpson isn't.
You make me sick!
He's a hardworking, ambitious man who always places his wife and children's needs above his own, makes sure to raise them in an environment that's both physically and spiritually sound, and, most importantly, looks stupidly sexy in a ski suit. Flanderization aside, Ned has always been a consistently nice, if puritanical character, and despite some lows here and there, he's the most consistently compassionate and lovable character in the show. He's the first one who will show up to help you during a tough time, the first one to apologize when he hurts you, and the last one to leave when you've got nobody left. We'd say Ned is the heart of the series, but believe it or not, that honor goes to our top pick.
No, you can't. If I'm not as good as you, then I'm horrible.
Even if Ned's heart is admittedly a little bigger. But in a show as long-running as The Simpsons, who else could take the top spot but the Simpson himself, Homer Simpson? In both the best and worst senses of the phrase, Homer is an American icon. He's lazy, gluttonous, short-tempered. Okay, basically he's all the 7 deadly sins wrapped into one lovable package. Yet somehow, despite all of that, Homer manages to be a sincere, mostly likable guy, and that's for one simple reason. He's human. For every episode where Homer is a selfish jerk-ass, there's another where he goes above and beyond for his family, especially in the earlier seasons. It's kind of rare for us to give the main character our top spot on these tier lists, but Homer is an exception because he embodies both of the most important facets of the show, humor and heart. Yeah, Homer is hilariously reckless, incompetent, childish, and self-centered, but you never really lose the sense that he genuinely loves his family and is just trying his best. Whether he's doing good or bad, Homer is unapologetically himself, and it's hard to not appreciate that kind of sincerity. Enjoy that donut, homie. You've earned it.